G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Shannon Ferguson from FanSaves based in Ottawa, Canada. Thanks for your time today, Shannon.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Let's start with how we know each other. We reached out to you on LinkedIn. We're keeping the balance at 50-50 male-female on the guests. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, I love that you have that mandate. I'm a big supporter of, women in business, women entrepreneurs. I think that our voices are finally starting to be amplified, and I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of things on that. In Australia anyway, small business owners, only 36% are female. And trying to find guests on the cast, I find males are more likely to want to talk about their business than females. But secondly, a couple of studies I read earlier this year around diversity, particularly gender diversity at board level and senior management. There've been a lot of studies that show if you've got more females in those upper tiers, the business is about, on average, 7% more valuable and profitable than with a more male-dominated board and management.
It's funny, these stats keep coming to the surface, and I definitely believe it. I know I've gotten to know so many other fellow women startup founders and entrepreneurs, and I've always said, like, I grew up, playing hockey with the boys and playing sports with the boys, and I was kind of raised to believe I could do anything I wanted to. Like, it wasn't just because I was a woman or a girl that I couldn't do it. So It's really just great seeing that coming to a head.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so FanSaves is a digital platform. We offer discounts and deals to fans from the sponsors of their favorite teams. So if you are a fan of your local professional soccer or football club, and you want it to support one of their sponsors, you can go on FanSaves and you can get a discount or a deal from one of those businesses. And every time the deals are redeemed, they're tracked in a back-end dashboard, which help the teams really understand their ROI and receive customer demographics that traditional paper coupons can't really do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It sounds like it's win-win-win.
It is. Everyone wins, and that's why we love it so much.
How did you start out?
Yeah, so back in 2016, I actually started my first business. It was a marketing and events small business, and I had moved back to my hometown. My mom had passed away at the end of 2015, so I was going through a really hard time because I had obviously just lost my mom, dealing with a lot of grief. And I had worked really hard to build a career in marketing in the bigger cities, in Montreal, Toronto, out in Calgary. And I knew moving home to my small town, I wasn't really going to find a job at that caliber. So I thought, let's start my own thing. My mom was an entrepreneur, so kind of followed in her footsteps. And in 2016, I ended up getting a client, the local minor professional hockey team, and I was helping out with them when one of their players actually broke his finger in a fight behind the net, and he ended up coming into the front office. He had experience. His name's Chris McCarthy, and we just completely took over that team, doing all the sales and marketing. He ended up he is my co-founder, my life partner now, and part of our job was to sell sponsorship. So we would be out, pounding the pavement, going into all the local businesses, the Pizza Huts of the world, let's say. And a lot of them would tell us, we want more out of our sponsorship. We don't just want a scoreboard ad or a rink board or a jersey logo. We want something that's actually tangible, that will activate and engage fans, drive them into our business, and track customer demographics. So couldn't find anything like that. Nothing existed. So we thought, let's start an app. And from there, it's just kind of grown into what it is today.
Fantastic. And talk about sliding door moments. Imagine if hadn't broke his finger?
We talk about that all the time. There's been so many, things in our business, in our relationship, where just wacky things that had to happen for some like really good things to end up taking place. And we always say that he's the first one to say that, breaking his finger was the best thing that ever happened to him in his life. So me too. I love that he broke his finger. It's still not healed. It's still crooked, but it was, we believe in those things because I think when you're a startup founder, you have to kind of have that a bit of faith.
Definitely. Yeah. Is he still playing semi-professional?
That was his last season. He played 7 years pro, and one of his dreams was always like to work for an NHL team. Mine as well. I would have loved to get up to that level. And both of us now say, like, what are the chances that we're not just working for one team, we're actually working with many teams. So both of our dreams have kind of come true in this completely different way we never would have anticipated.
Yeah. I'm just really surprised what you said there. There wasn't anyone already doing something like this back in 2016. Even you're obviously in Canada, even in United States, there was no one.
No. So yeah, we really came up with the idea in the summer of 2017 and launched our MVP at the beginning of 2018. And still today, we have competition in the couponing space, of course. Everyone knows Groupon. But we really are the first to be connecting fans to their favorite teams and to those team sponsors. So we know, we've done our own research studies. We know that 90% of sports fans can't name more than 5 of their favorite team sponsors, which is a huge missed opportunity. It's a huge number. So for us, we're really that first social couponing network is what we like to call ourselves, where we really blend couponing with sponsorship.
I think it's a terrific idea. So 2016, when you had the idea, how old were you when you decided to jump into this?
Yeah, so my first business, the marketing business in 2016, I was 30.
Yep.
And so 2017 with FanSaves, I was 31. Chris is 3 years younger than me, so I robbed the cradle of him. So he was 28 at the time when we were working for the team and stuff. So him late 20s, me early 30s, and definitely at the time, I always think when you're at any age, you always think, wow, I'm so old, or oh my God, maybe sometimes you think you're so young, but looking back, you're like, wow, I really have learned so much since then.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have some key numbers to illustrate the growth of the business?
Yeah, for sure. So, this year, we have now really grown 20. I'm going to rephrase that a bit.
Yep.
This year was kind of a recovery from COVID and still navigating through COVID. And we were able to grow despite that. So, 2019 was our first sales year. It was a really great year. And then March 2020, when we heard the news about the NBA shutting down, we kind of looked at each other and we were like, all right, let's make a decision. Are we in and we're going to make this work? And, that was what we chose to do. And we got through 2020 and we were able to continue growing our brand and growing our business. And then 2021, we reined our focus back to just sports, because we had, we do still service different verticals, but we really brought our focus back to sports, and doing that really did allow us to have a great year. So we're working with 45 teams and organizations across North America now. We have 10 beachhead clients beachhead clients in 10 different leagues across North America as well. So we also just recently surpassed 600 different businesses and brands offering deals on FanSaves. So we're really proud that we were able to, not only just get through the pandemic, but also find that growth this year in 2021. And, next year, we're definitely anticipating an even bigger year, since we're currently raising our seed round.
And what about full-time equivalent? So it was you and Chris pretty much full-time from the start. And what are you up to now?
Yeah, so it's been Chris and I from the start, and we're so happy. We're a full-time team of 9. We have an amazing group of core people that have been with us for the last couple of years, and we've just continued to grow. We recently hired a VP of sales who has 12 years of experience in the major and minor professional leagues. So for us, it's just really amazing. We really pride ourselves on attracting great talent. And we recently won a Best Ottawa Business Award for Best Leaders for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which we're so proud of.
Oh, great. Well done.
Thank you.
When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
Oh, that's a good question. I think any startup founder or entrepreneur will tell you that it's such a roller coaster. Some days you're like, I am the most successful person ever. And then some days you're like, oh, I have the worst imposter syndrome. What am I doing?
Yeah.
So I think a really great moment that I actually manifested for a long time, almost from the very beginning of starting FanSaves, almost from even as a child. Big reader. I love magazines. I love like business news. So I had this dream of being featured in Forbes. And this summer, actually in September, I got featured in Forbes. And for me, that was a really big moment where it was like, okay, I think we have to be a little successful if Forbes is going to feature us. So that article has really led to so many opportunities, and it helps diminish the imposter syndrome a little bit more.
Yeah, fantastic. Well done. Yeah, congratulations. What does success look like to you?
Success to me, I love this question because, before starting FanSaves, growing up, everyone thinks success is, tons of money, a nice house, a nice car, and those are all great things to strive for. But I really think success is waking up happy every day and loving what you do and having it not really feel like work because you love it so much. And, I think obviously the people that have mastered success have also mastered how to be happy. And I think that the happier that you are in life, the more those kind of tangible things like money or, fame or anything like that people kind of usually equate with success, really just starts at the core of waking up happy every day.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe that. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
I think it's so important to not be scared to put yourself out there. So many people, especially ones that I talk to a lot, they don't want to share their success. They don't want to share, the wins or the good stories unless it's something huge, because they just don't want to come off as like, cocky, or they don't want to come off as they're bragging. And I often tell them, if you're going to build a brand, you have to be putting yourself out there. You have to put those small wins out there. You have to build that community and those people that are like your early champions and that are going to cheer you on, because there's going to be some days when you need those fans like, supporting you and making you feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this. So I think a lot of times when you put yourself out there, what you're really doing again is building that community. And I think that is the biggest key, is having a community around not just your personal brand, but your business brand as well. Because at the end of the day, marketing comes down to people, and people need to be happy.
Yeah, definitely. And there must be a bit of virality to your offering to the fans, because they would love the value they're getting from it. And I'm sure then they would pass it on to their friends pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's really cool. Something we're looking, and we've wanted to do from the beginning, but with this seed round, it's going to allow us to do, is actually creating more of a rewards and a loyalty program. And that's even going to add to the virality, because, with apps, we're not just an app, we're a full platform. We have a website and everything, but anything technology, you really have to be sticky these days. You have to get people coming back. You have to get people excited. So I really, the deals have been great, but obviously when you find a little bit of success in one part, you want to keep building on that and see how you can and grow it out a little bit more. So it's been really fun learning about how all of that works, and just, growing the business on that end as well.
I think adding the rewards or loyalty program is going to be a huge boost, because people love when things like that are gamified, earning points. My girlfriend's addicted to one website. She buys all this vegan. It's the largest vegan website in the world, and who I've had Julie on the cast, but yeah, she just loves the points going up every time she buys.
Oh, totally. Me too. I'm a huge, like in Canada, we have optimum points, and I'll go out of my way to shop at one store because like I can get more optimum points. And Chris is always like, really? We have to drive across town? I'm like, yes, they have like triple the points today.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did you fund your business? I know you're raising a seed round at the moment, but how did you fund it to this point?
Yeah, we've been very scrappy. Chris and I, again, we were working for a minor pro hockey team before this, so we weren't like rolling in the dough. So we had to be very resourceful. We've been very fortunate to, receive a lot of government grants and loans. Because we are in a rural area, there's different programs that want to help fund, startups and smaller businesses. So we've been able to, get funding from them. We've, in 2019, we won a huge pitch competition, which was $100,000 investments. And, we have like any money that we ever have, we put back into the business. And we've just been, we've been able to bootstrap $400,000. And we're really proud of ourselves as real first time founders. We've been able to just literally apply to everything. We never don't apply to things. And, being on the pitch circuit from 2018 through to the beginning of 2020 really allowed us to, just get seen and get in front of different institutions, I guess, that were able to eventually fund us.
Yeah, great. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I would. Sports tech it's growing so fast, and it's really fun. I mean, myself and Chris, we're athletes at heart. I grew up playing competitive hockey. I said this earlier. And for me, like working in sports and pairing that with marketing, which are my two of my most favorite things in the world, I would definitely, I truly believe I'm in the right industry for myself. There's so many amazing industries out there, but again, you want to go with an industry that you really understand and that gets you out of bed in the morning. So if I had all the money in the world, I definitely think this would be an industry I'd want to stay in.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business journey so our audience can learn from it?
Every single day is, there's stresses every single day. And I think, part of what I'm trying to do, especially with my messaging, is to make sure other founders know they're not alone. Because especially solo founders, I can't imagine doing this on my own. Like Chris and I have each other to like bounce ideas off of, or if one of us is low, the other is high, and we can balance each other out. So, I think that you're always going to have stress, oftentimes when you're smaller, it's money. How are we going to make payroll? How are we going to, get through this next month? But then you hear when startups get bigger, then you have bigger problems. You're making sure your investors are happy. You're making sure you're hitting other KPIs. So, I think every single facet of startup life is stressful, and you really have to learn how to manage that stress, because you can see why many startups like don't make it to the 3-year mark, because if you can't deal with that stress, it's easy to burn out.
Yeah, absolutely. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think for us, with a sale, both of us, Chris and I, having a sales and marketing background, that has always been the most fun. Like, let's, get the word out and pitching. I love pitching. But really, figuring out our numbers, figuring out how many teams we have to get on at what price, and how many deals we have to close by this time and hitting those KPIs, that part of the business has always been one that we're still to this day constantly learning, constantly improving upon, like learning about EBITDA and all these different things that it's easy when you can say, oh, the fun part is marketing, let me just do that. But really knowing and understanding your numbers, understanding your business, that was really something that we had to work at, both of us. And I'm just proud to say, like, we've really made so much headway, and it's nice to look back and go, wow, we've learned so much on that front.
Yeah, that's good. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I would have to say, what have I enjoyed the least? I think it would be the exact same answer as I just had. I think learning to also have patience. When you're a startup founder, you want everything to move fast. You want things to grow like even faster than they're already growing. It's like, from the outside world, everyone's like, oh, you're growing so fast. But when you're a startup founder, you're never growing fast enough. And I think my answer to this question would be I've enjoyed like not being able to, I guess, fully have not having other, like, say, a client who ends up coming on, but it takes, a month to come on. Whereas for me, I'd love for them to come on the next day.
Yeah,
so again, having that patience has really been something that I haven't enjoyed a ton.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I love the amazing people I've gotten to meet along the way, the network I've built. And, I look back in the past 4 years and I think of all of the amazing people that have come into my life that wouldn't be here had FanSaves never existed. And, we have an amazing advisory board. I have mentors through so many different programs I've been part of, like She Booth and Tampa Bay Wave and Hype. And, all of these people that are champions of ours, they take the time and they talk to us and they help us through these, things I just previously spoke about. And, they help us through the things that we don't know, and they help us learn. And I'm always just constantly so grateful for how many amazing people FanSaves has really brought into my life.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
That's probably my favorite question, because I think mindset is so important and a lot of people probably don't realize how important it is.
Yeah.
And I think my biggest shift really is realizing that truly, like, what you imagine and what you manifest can actually become real. I always kind of thought that, like, I grew up, being like, oh yeah, I can have anything I dream of. But actually, being able to, it's happened many times, close my eyes and picture something happening, picture us getting a client, picture us, going to California for business, or, picturing us being up on a scoreboard at one of our clients' games, and being able to then picture that and then see it in real life.
Yep.
Has just been so cool. And I think it all comes down to mindset, because if you don't really picture those things, they can never really happen, or maybe they'll happen, but you'll never be able to appreciate them as much.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Well, I guess it's not I was going to say resiliency, but it's probably not a habit. But I would say one habit would be like never letting, like, your fears overcome your potential. And I say that because I've, like, a habit you think of, like, biting your fingernails or anything like that. But fear is such a habit for so many people. So many people don't do the things they want to do in life because they are scared. They have fear. They aren't sure if it'll work out. So I think, overcoming that fear, that habit of the first thing you think about is negative, or the first thing you think about is, oh, this isn't going to work, or yeah, but, overcoming that habit and thinking of it more like yes and, or I can do it, or I will do it, I think is a really important habit that that has got at least me through some really hard times.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. growsmallbusiness.com. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I'll start with one of the biggest, I wouldn't say mistakes, but learning curves for us is, Chris and I are non-technical co-founders. I have a bit of background in web design and stuff like that, but nothing when it comes to coding an app, which is how FanSaves began. And, we had to go through 4 different, developers or agencies till we found our amazing developer who we have now. But going through, the 4 different types of agencies and developers, really we learned, so much, but it was a lot of times like a costly mistake where we didn't know what we didn't know. So, that was a big thing that even I think this week we were just saying holy cow, we had to overcome a lot. And actually that put our first, our sales back. We couldn't sell until we had a product, and it took about a whole year to finally get a sellable product. So that was not a mistake, but a lesson learned. And, I think the wins, I'm going to give a shout out to our, employee number 3, Sean Kite, who he came to us as on an internship in 2019, and he's grown up the ranks. He's our senior account manager. And, just finding someone like him from the very beginning who gets what a startup is, who has that startup mentality, who believes in the vision we're growing. For me, that's been such a big win. And Sean has become like family to us.
And what did you see in the interview process for Sean for the internship that stood out?
Yeah, so something that really stood out about Sean, when we first interviewed him, we were at an internship, like a college kind of job fair. And when he put his resume in front of us, we obviously being a sports tech startup, we recognized his last name being Kite. And we were like, oh, are you related to Jim Kite, who was a famous NHL player known for his fighting skills, but also known to be the first deaf hockey player? And he was like, yeah, that's my uncle. And we said, oh, that's so cool. He's like, I have, hockey in my blood. I also play hockey. And Sean is hearing impaired as well. He plays for the Canadian Deaf Olympics team, actually. So, wow. That really stood out, that he has a hockey background, that he really, obviously has overcome a ton of adversity. And for us, it was just like a match made in heaven. And he actually didn't come on right away with us for that internship. But when his other placement finished, he actually reached out at the perfect time. And we were like, yes, we'll have you. And right. We all we were just so happy it worked out.
Just back on the developers, finding good nerds, in my experience, is fucking hard. It's not uncommon. You've taken 3 or 4 turns at getting the right people. They're hard to find reliable, quality developers.
It's literally been like banging our head against a brick wall. And up until we found Casey, who's amazing, at the end of 2019. But really, it was, we had often heard that a lot of times developers will build apps, but they don't grow because they don't have the marketing and sales experience. So we were kind of coming in on the flip side with the marketing and sales, but no kind of clue what we were getting into. So, there's so much that I've even learned, even with processes and, I don't think I'm a non-technical co-founder anymore because I deal with all the project management. I can, I understand how things work and how things flow. And, I really, I don't fault our earlier developers. But I'm actually quite thankful because it was because of them and some of their mistakes that actually allowed me to learn. So
what are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Always have a game on hand. I'm a huge board game nerd. I love board games. And I think that it's so important. I think a game is kind of, a good analogy at what a startup is. When you're growing a startup, you're playing like chess, not checkers. And sometimes playing a game is a tangible way to help your team understand what you're doing and why sometimes things seem crazy when really there is a goal at the end of it. So, our whole team is remote, spread out across Canada from BC up to Ontario. And we obviously do multiple weekly calls or multiple calls during the week, but every Friday we make sure to, take time and kick back and we'll play a different game remotely. And it sounds so corny, but some of those times are the most fun because that's when everyone lets loose. And, if we were in the office, we would definitely be having 3:00 beer club on Friday.
Yeah.
I learned that from my previous marketing days that always helps with culture. So for us building, originally we did have an office and we did have people coming in and having to completely change that with COVID. It was hard at first, but in the end, it's been a blessing because we've been able to attract, again, talent from across the country, whereas otherwise we had a smaller pool to pick from. So I think really, our culture is always let's work hard, let's have fun, and let's treat each other. Let's all treat each other right. Let's be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Which in some companies that I don't think is talked about enough, but at FanSaves we really believe in that.
Yeah, it's common sense, but not always common practice.
Oh, totally.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
So balance is really interesting, especially since Chris and I are life partners and we've been dating for just about 5 years. Literally, FanSaves came just after we started dating. So we've always called it work-life integration.
Yep.
It's not like we're ever turning off the business and we're not ever turning off our relationship. But we've been really lucky that because we love what we do, we've actually got to do a lot of really cool things because of the business. Chris had never really traveled outside of Canada. He had one time before this, but because of FanSaves and, pitching and everything like that, we've been able to travel to Berlin, to Memphis, to Boston, to Phoenix, to California, to Florida. So, for us, traveling has become such an important part of how we, our work-life integration, I will say, because when we're there, we make sure to find time, even if it's just going to a free, little bonfire on the beach, making sure to enjoy those moments because those moments really make it worth it. There's been so many times where we look at each other and we go, holy cow, we created this moment because we created FanSaves. And can you believe we're here? So I really think that for us, at least, it's been a good way to build the business because again, we're always together. Some days it's midnight and we're like, okay, I have an idea. So we see it as a bonus.
It's hard to switch off though, isn't it? When you love, running or growing a business.
It is, unless it's maybe we had a few too many drinks one night and I'm the next day on a Sunday, I'm okay, not going to go on my computer today. Get me the Netflix. Yeah. But that's a once in a while thing, but I think it's okay to do that.
So you've got some international clients outside of North America?
So right now we're focused on North America.
Yep.
We have partners and clients in Canada and the US. We have been building our relationships with other teams and organizations in Europe, in some in Australia, as well as I'm sorry, the Europe, so the
Yes.
UK, and sorry, I'm going to say India as well. So India, I was part of a program called like the Canada India program. It was an accelerator. Was supposed to go to India in late 2020. Of course, COVID got in the way of that, but we really see ourselves expanding into these other markets, because when you think of India, you think of cricket, that's huge, and then Europe, football, same as with Australia. So there are so many opportunities, and again, we're just raising this money, keeping our heads down, growing and improving our product here in North America, so that when we do go global, that we have everything kind of tied up in a nice bow that we can replicate other places.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask if you were planning on expanding outside of North America. Have you got any big sporting brands that you work with that you're able to mention?
Yeah, so we recently closed our first AHL team. So that's a hockey team for anyone who's not familiar with hockey or sports. The AHL is the farm team of the NHL. So oftentimes players will play in the AHL and they'll get called up to the NHL. So there's a team called the Belleville Senators, and they're the farm team for the Ottawa Senators. So we recently launched with them, which has been really exciting because we are in talks with a few NHL teams, a couple of NFL teams, MLB teams as well. So really proving it at the minor league level. Again, like what I just said, making sure that we're proving it so that we can, when we go up to those major league levels, that everything is set and everything is ready. So we're right at that cusp. We're having those calls, we're having those talks. And it's just really cool that we're finally at that level where we can service a major league team, and we have a few that are interested in signing up.
Right. How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Tons. I would say that, I'm a big reader. Like I read all the time. Before starting FanSaves, I didn't read a ton of self-development books, but those have become like staples on my bookshelf. I'm always looking to improve, again, like what I was saying earlier, mindset, and improving like your just how you're growing your business. Chris and I are always, we're very like coachable. Because we are athletes, we're super competitive. So we always think of our startup, like, how can we train harder? How can we be better? Like, just like when you're practicing for hockey, like you're getting up at 5 a.m. and putting your skates on and going out into the cold. It's not always fun, just like professional development. Sometimes you have to get like deep and you have to learn why this is happening. So I really think that we, again, we're part of so many programs and a part of so many great communities that have helped us, with sales and with marketing and, just with even operations and onboarding and so many things. I would say professional development is like something we make a focus like every day.
That's very smart. That's good. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
So many that have really, some that have really changed the course of our business. Currently we have one of our advisors, Michael Sacker, who is helping us with our seed round and really digging deep and getting into the nitty gritty numbers with us. And, we're just so lucky to have him who believes in us enough that he does mentor us and help us with these things. And, again, just we've been part of so many different programs where we get this help, and people are just so smart. And we always say our goal is always to, surround ourselves with people who are smarter than us, because that's who's going to help us. So for us, we've had so many mentors, so many coaches. I'd be here all day if I had to name them, but definitely just so appreciative of all of them.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
We do have an advisory board. We started this in 2018. We were part of another kind of incubator. It was the first one we were part of, and someone who was one of the, I guess, board members of it actually told us, start your advisory board now, start it early. You don't have to pay them anything, like get them to do it for the prestige. And, we took that to heart, and we said, okay, so started developing relationships, seeing who we wanted it. We already had a couple of, one of Chris's university professors and the commissioner of the league we were working in, we had become really close with. So we said, hey, do you want to join our advisory board? And
Right.
They did. And, just as we've grown, now people are like, hey, do you need an advisor? And we're like, oh my God, we love you. Like, let's figure it out. So, and, some advisors have changed more into mentors, and some mentors have changed into advisors. So it's really been a fluid advisory board.
Yeah, great. All right, Shannon, we're on our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Never giving up. It would be the easiest thing to give up. There are challenges that come up every day when you can say, okay, maybe this is it. And growing a business is really about waking up every day and deciding not to give up. And that can be really hard sometimes, especially if things aren't, again, moving as fast as you want them to, or something big falls through and you're just so discouraged. So I just really think never giving up is actually the hardest thing.
Favorite business book would just help you the most?
I'm reading a book right now. It's called Overcome Your Villains by Heather Monahan. And she's actually, someone I've looked up to for so long. I follow her on LinkedIn and Instagram, and she just released this book, and I'm just about finished it. And it's been a really great read, because when you're starting a business, there are going to be a lot of villains. There's going to be a lot of people who don't believe in you. There's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, that's a cool idea, but really, you're going to make money off this. And, the book really talks about shutting out kind of the negativity and focusing on what you can do and what you can control and how you can grow. So that's been a great book. And also Untamed by Glennon Doyle is great. And then I have this other my last book, because I already told you I'm a book nerd. So the last book I'm also, I'm really loving is How to Build a Goddamn Empire.
Cool.
And it's a really great book. It's the layout is really cool, and it's by a woman. I believe she's about 30, and she's built the Business Bulletin, and just such a great read. So fun, and just a bit very realistic. When you read it, you're like, okay, I can see myself in this. So those are 3 books I'm going to throw at you.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
So online learning tools. I mean, we're always, LinkedIn, I'm going to say, is has been such a godsend for our business. We use LinkedIn all the time, and I guess it wouldn't be a learning tool, but I find it is, because when you scroll through LinkedIn, you're reading so many different posts and so many different stories and different articles from other startup founders. And we've been really deliberate in how we've grown our LinkedIn community. So for me, when I go on LinkedIn, I'm able to learn, a lesson of the day about not giving up, or about overcoming your villains. And, Michelle Romano, for example, she's a Canadian startup founder doing amazing things. She always has so many great tips. So I really do think LinkedIn is a learning tool. I feel like it's just a great opportunity, even for me, to share my story, and people are like, oh my God, you're helping me. So again, that community is really awesome. So that's what I'm going to say for that one.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I'm going to say 2. I'm going to give 2 tools. The first one is Trello. Love Trello. We use it for everything in our business. And it's really just helped to make sure there's a flow to the business, make sure everyone's on the same page. Just really great for project management, and just overall, making just overall making sure that everyone is on the same page. For us, that's been really great. And then my other favorite tool is Canva. We've saved so much money. You know, we hear other startup founders who don't like have, you know, any design background. I do have a bit of design background. I'm also very like self-taught. I'm not going to say I'm a graphic designer. I didn't like go to school for it, but I've self-taught myself how to use Canva, and we've been able to design so many things, from our logo to like materials that we hand out at games. So I really think that, you know, Canva has obviously grown a ton since I started using it. And I just think it's one of my favorite tools for a small business.
We use it, but I haven't used it personally, but it's an Australian unicorn, started in the 2 of the 3 co-founders' apartment in Perth when they were just out of uni, I think. It's now worth $40 billion. It's huge. I hear it's a great product.
I love their story. I follow the Canva story and all their investment and stuff. And I just, because when I started using it, it was very like, it was almost just out of the beta whenever I found out about it. So I always think of it, I'm like, oh, it's my baby, because I knew about it first, you know? Yep. So, you know, Sean, who I mentioned before, he's always like, you're the Canva queen. And I'm like, oh, yay. So love Canva. Great story there.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I would tell myself on day one of starting out to just start, to just do it, because there's so many things that, so many doubts, so many things that could come up that says that would any rational person say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I shouldn't, you know, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And I think if I could tell myself like anything from day one would be, you know, not just start the business, but just start that project, just start developing, just start anything that you can think of, get a head start learning about like the business, start learning about your numbers, start learning about how to calculate EBITDA. So, you know, just start and realize that every tiny little step that you make actually adds up to really big changes in the end.
Yeah, great. Thanks for your time today, Shannon. I think the audience will get a lot of value out of what you shared with us in your journey. Congratulations to you and Chris and the wider team, going from 2 FTE now to 9 in 4 years, over 600 sponsors or partners you're working with, and look forward to hearing your global expansion.
Thanks so much. I can't wait till we're in Australia and we can come to a sporting event with you and meet you in person.
Definitely. You'll have to come down to Tasmania. We just got our NBL basketball team back after 20 years, which is the premier basketball league down here. And we're vying for a football team in the Australian Rules Football League as well. So that might be next year. So lots of sport going on here.
That's amazing. Well, you know, FanSaves might be there before you know it. So.
Yeah. And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.